Hi everyone, this is Tanishka. This is my intuitive download for the current week where we've got the equinox as well as the full moon. So if you're having trouble sleeping, that's why. We've got two powerful vortices. First of all, with the full moon, hi Lauren, with full moon, you know, this is when the energy is so amplified at night that we can feel, you know, like it's party time. I know I woke up the last two mornings at 2 and 3 a.m. and couldn't get back to sleep. Now, this is amplified. Normally, people that are sensitive and women, because we're governed by the lunar cycle, it can be difficult to sleep around the full moon. But this time it's amplified because this full moon is coinciding with the equinox. That's the autumn equinox if you're in the northern hemisphere, and the spring equinox if you're in the southern hemisphere. Now, the equinox is when the sun aligns with the diameter of the earth. And because I'm quite close to the diameter of the earth here in Bali, most of the women in my inner goddess retreat, I've got my Athena armbands on at the moment, feeling very Wonder Woman. We journeyed with Athena today. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. You know, the closer we are to the equator, to the diameter of the earth, which is where we get the name Demeter, the earth mother, the more we're affected by that electromagnetic pulse that the earth is putting out, and the harder it is to sleep. So it's really important, hi everyone, it's really important to ground. So, you know, that means walking around barefoot, lying on the earth, eating protein. And if you do want a good night's sleep, go to bed early. So, you know, you want to be ideally in the theta state before 10 o'clock at night, unless you've got a big night planned, because if you are up after 10, then that zenith between 10 and 2, with both the full moon and the equinox, you're not going to get much sleep. So, and this way, if you do wake up in the middle of the, you know, early hours of the morning, as I have the last couple of mornings, and most of the women on my retreat, then, you know, at least you've gotten some hours before that by going to bed early. So that's my self-care tip. Now, to speak about the energies that we are, you know, going through this full moon is in Aries. Now, Aries is, you know, it's the child. It's the first sign of the zodiac. And this full moon is conjunct Chiron. Chiron is a planetoid. It was discovered in 1977, the year Star Wars came out. And Chiron brings up the biggest wound that we've come here to heal this lifetime. Just noticed my hands look very big. I look like Kenny Everett in like Brotherly Love sketch. Because anyway, side note, sorry. So, point being, this full moon is likely to bring up our childhood wounds. Okay, coming ready or not. It will be especially so for those born between 1970 and 1977 who have their natal Chiron in Aries. So it moved into Aries, Chiron did, in April this year. And so those of us who have that placement will have had more vulnerability surface in order to go back and, you know, heal those old beliefs, those old stories that we created, which kids do. We make assumptions about ourselves and about the world based on what we observe with our limited understanding. So as adults, we need to go back and review and go, is that actually true? And identify what those beliefs and lessons are. Otherwise, they're unconsciously driving compulsive behaviors, but also limiting us from trusting ourselves to make decisions for fear of being hurt, trusting others, trusting the process of life. So lovely to see all of you here. Thank you so much for joining me. So for those of you who are in the Northern Hemisphere right now, my sense is you're going to be very sensitive to feeling triggered into, you know, facing stuff that is sitting back there, the shadow, the stuff you don't know, because the autumn equinox, which is what you're journeying into this week, it will be on the 22nd for those of you on that side of the date line in the Northern Hemisphere. But we're already in the vortex of it. You'll be feeling it already. But in Tantra, the autumn equinox was known as the Black Wedding. And the Black Wedding is the beginning of the descent. So for those that, you know, are wanting to create conscious partnerships in the ancient world, this was in the cycle of the Hieros Gamos, yeah, of sacred union as a spiritual path. This is when the lovers would begin the descent, all right? And if they were conscious about it, it would be a time of beginning their personal growth journey, okay? If we're not conscious about it, it is potentially the most testing time for relationships, all right? Starting this equinox, and then even more so with the next gate, seasonal gate, which is Samhain or Halloween, and then down to the darkest day, which is winter solstice, the dark night of the soul. So for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, there may be a catalyst that comes up, particularly with Chiron conjunct this full moon, where you feel, you know, wounded by something someone happens, or maybe someone says something to you and calls out your shadow, or unconsciously they don't think about what they're saying and the effect it has on your feelings, and it triggers old wounds. This is a gift, okay? So when we're unconscious, we scapegoat the person, the messenger, for, you know, triggering us or for pointing out our shadow. But, you know, if we will bite into those dark fruits, yeah, the apple of wisdom, then we embrace it as a gift, and we're like, wow, this is an opportunity to become whole, to become wise, to face my shadow. So, yeah, pointy end of the stick. So those in the Southern Hemisphere, this is the opposite. This is the white wedding that we're coming up to, the spring equinox. And so in the tradition of the Hieros Gamos, of sacred union, this was a time when people would start a conscious courtship. They would start, you know, they would begin relationship. And this is after we've emerged from the darkest days of winter, of gestating and connecting with our soul, and really reviewing what needs to die, what needs to be let go of, and being reborn, if you will. And when we're in touch with our soul needs, when we've done the work over the internal months of autumn and winter, then we are available to ourselves. We're available for love. We're available to life and to opportunities. So this is, you know, like the first buds of spring, you know, in the, where I used to live, it's where we'd get the jonquils and the daffodils, you know, the bulbs, the first signs of spring, which is often the white and the yellow flowers. It's like the first burst of sunlight, of innocence again. And it's lovely. I've got a white rose here, which is pretty rare in Bali, let me tell you, and white roses blooming just behind me in the garden here, which is about the return to innocence. And that's what this gate is about, spring equinox. You know, if we've done the work to really own our shadow, we're not stuck in bitterness and resentment and wound and victimhood and martyrdom and blame. We're going, you know what, I'm actually glad I had that experience. It was painful, but wow, I've learned so much. And so we become grateful for the experience, and that is what enables us to return to innocence. And innocence is not naivety. Innocence is when we see the dark in ourselves and in others, but we also see the inherent perfection in that. And so we learn to trust the divine plan. We learn to trust ourselves and each other. And so when we emerge from the darkness of deep winter to the spring equinox in a state of innocence, then new growth is really possible. And new opportunities, a whole new chapter, new conditions can be created. Now, this is especially true with the full moon in Aries. Now, this will be true for everybody, okay? So because Aries is the first sign in the zodiac, it corresponds to the Fool card, the first major arcana card of the tarot. And the Fool, in the image, is, you know, this youth, like someone who's leaving home and going to college, you know, or going out into the workforce, or starting his apprenticeship or her apprenticeship. You know, he's got the kerchief on his stick, and he's going out to seek an adventure, to seek his quest. And in the hero's journey or the heroine's journey, this is the call to adventure. So this week is likely to be a call to adventure, to begin something new, to create new conditions, to take a risk and leave your comfort zone. And as I said, that will be more so for those in the southern hemisphere, because it's not just the full moon in Aries, it's the spring equinox, and spring is also the time of the maiden, the knight, the youth, regardless of our chronological age. Okay, so Chiron has had a bit of a bum rap. Chiron is known to a lot of people as the wounded healer. And my understanding is that that is the shadow expression of Chiron. Now, if we were to look into the sky, Chiron is considered a planetoid rather than a planet, because it's, you know, sort of halfway in size between a planet and an asteroid, but it makes it no less powerful. And Chiron, my understanding is that when it is conscious, this archetypal energy, when we go back and face our wounds, so we face the boogeyman, we face the past trauma, we face our fears, we then reframe the story that we made as an assumption about that particular experience as a child. And so in rewriting the story, we then change the trajectory of how our story ends in our waking world. So, you know, Chiron is the spiritual teacher, someone who understands the power of story. You know, and in the ancient oral tradition, it was stories that were considered medicine for the soul, the psyche. You know, if we are to truly understand ourselves, then we need stories that provide insight and awareness. So, you know, I've been rereading Women Who Run with the Wolves lately, and it's, you know, been 25 years since I read it, and it's just been such a gift to come back and read it. Having read it once as a maiden, now journeyed through mother, and in the mage stage of my chronological life journey, I'm getting so much more out of it. And, you know, I've also written stories to help heal the psyche. So in my book, The Inner Goddess Makeover, there are the 7 stories of the 7 inner goddess archetypes that make up the feminine part of our psyche. And in the book I wrote called Creating Sacred Union Within, I speak about not just the feminine but the masculine myths as well, and how they've been distorted, and how through changing the meaning we've actually been disempowered as a people. So it's really important that we reclaim the origins of our stories, and I give channeled examples of what's come through me that is in a sense a restoration of our archetypal myths. So you can check out both of those. They're available as, you know, not MP3, what are they called? Ebooks. If you want to get right into it this week while the energy is there, on my website, themoonwoman.com. So, yeah, Chiron is an opportunity to revisit the past, rewrite your story, okay? So if you took nothing else from this video, I would say that's the focus this week. So I do want to speak a little bit about Aries, though, because when I speak about, you know, the youth who will go out and start a new adventure, when we think about, you know, 17, 18-year-olds leaving home, they've got this kind of, oh, what the hell, give it a try. Even if I fail, I'll learn, or it'll all work out, don't worry about it. There's this kind of bravado, this confidence, and it's because they haven't been weathered and tempered by failure, by, you know, things going wrong in life, the unexpected. And as we get older, we can tend to lose the ability to take educated risks, because, you know, if we haven't processed the things that we saw as failures or mistakes, we stop trusting ourselves. So when we take the time to process, what did I learn from that failure? You know, we did a process in the retreat that I was running today, where I asked everyone to share what they felt was their greatest failure and their greatest success and what they learned from both. And of course, people have learned more from their perceived failures than their perceived successes, you know, or equal from both. But yeah, not the other way. So, you know, our perceived failures are so valuable. It's what really deepens our understanding. And you know, once a lesson's learned, we're never going to repeat it again. So, you know, with Aries, when he is, and I say he because it's a masculine energy, but it doesn't matter whether we're male or female, and whether we're born when the sun was moving through Aries or not, this full moon in Aries will have an effect on all of us, okay? Yes, especially if you've got a lot of planets in the first house in your natal chart, which is ruled by Aries, or if your sun or your moon or your rising sign is Aries. And if you don't know if you are any of those things, you can go to astro.com and get a free chart. It's not my site, but you know, or there are apps out there like Astrology Gold, which does cost money, but you know, you can get a chart. Again, no affiliation with me. So when the Aries energy is expressed in a healthy way within us, within our psyche, when we're going through a big Aries transit, like this moon waxing to full in the sign of Aries, and it's not there yet, but it will be on the 25th for those of us in the southern hemisphere. For those in the north, depending on which side of the date line you're on, it'll be on the 24th of September, which is the day after the equinox. So, you know, they're literally on top of each other. And Aries, when expressed in a healthy way, feels enthusiastic about change, about trying something new, about stepping out of their known world and exploring the unknown world of new opportunities, because they possess an innate trust in themselves and in the divine plan that things will work out, you know. So for those who haven't processed and integrated their past painful life lessons, Aries transits can highlight their lack of trust in themselves and in others. So just notice that in yourself. And if you're, you know, feeling timid, if you're feeling like, oh, I don't think I can do whatever the new call to adventure is in your life, it's a flag that you haven't finished processing and integrating a past painful experience to turn it into wisdom, so that you can be grateful for having had the experience rather than retreating. Now, Aries is the sign of independence. So this will really bring up for us a sense of, I want to do things my way. I want to take action when it suits me. Now, this can be very challenging in relationships, or you know, whether that's in an intimate relationship, whether that's in the workplace or in the family, because when we're only thinking about what I want to do, we're not taking into account and considering what others have going on, whether it's checking in about the timing of things or, you know, how that would affect them. And so we need to counterpoint this Aries energy that's coming up this week with the energy of its opposite sign, which is Libra. Okay, so this is about the axis of Libra, or Aries and Libra. So Aries is very much about me, me, me. And Libra is all about we. So, not urine, but anyway. So, for anything to work, we need a balance of the two, okay? If there's no I, if there's no independent identity, then we just get lost in relationship, all right? We get, you know, completely dominated. Likewise, if it's all about we have no sense of self, yeah? Oh, hang on, I think I just said the same thing in a different way. So what I'm trying to say is we don't want to polarize into independence, which is, extreme shadow Aries, or extreme shadow Libra, which is codependence. Now, this can happen when, for instance, as a child, if we're always left to our own devices, if we look to our parents and they're just so overwhelmed, as mine were, that we go, fuck, I'm on my own here, we develop a belief that, make the assumption that if I don't do it, it doesn't get done, right? And whilst that may have been true to some degree in our original family of origin, if we carry that belief with us, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And whenever something doesn't go according to plan, or we ask someone to do something and they don't follow through, it can trigger that, and then we go into a bit of anxiety, our wound is triggered, and that can create conflict, external conflict. So that's a bit of a flag this week. Similarly, if we grew up with parents that were smothering, that were micromanaging, that didn't give us the space to try and fail and learn through our mistakes, then we don't trust ourselves. And so we always defer to someone else. Oh, would you do it for me? Or would you do it with me? And we become cloistering, we become codependent. Neither of these extremes is healthy. What we need is interdependence, all right? We need a healthy balance of, I need to follow my own star, I need to, really be in touch with my own needs. But likewise, I need to be aware of working well with others, of diplomacy, of co-creation, of cooperation, which is positive Libra. So if you're feeling a bit impatient, a bit hot under the collar, as we approach this full moon in Aries, it's a bit of a flag that you may be focusing just on what you want and the timing you want it in, rather than considering the needs of others. So yeah, this is an opportunity to sort of cool down the temper of fiery Aries, which is ruled by Mars, by using the cool logic of Libra. Because Aries can erupt like the god of war, or like a child throwing a temper tantrum, if we aren't able to articulate our needs, if we're not able to identify our needs and ask then for our needs to be taken into consideration. And this requires some assertion. It requires the ability to speak up on our own behalf, which is positive Libra, the opposite sign. So, and the ability to negotiate win-win outcomes and situations that honor equally the needs of both. So that's a huge challenge this week for everybody, whether you're in partnership, whether that's playing out with your children, whether that's playing out with work colleagues. We're all going to be challenged around, how do I, interface with other people so that everyone's needs get met. Do be extra careful on the road this week, because full moon in Aries is potentially a time when people can be hot-headed on the road, and it's a my way or the highway kind of attitude. So, it's really important that we are not impetuous, not reckless, and, don't be running a red light, even a late amber light, because it's a time when, accidents are more prone to happen, all right? And people acting without thinking, okay? And often, it can be people that have a bit of a death wish because they haven't resolved their anger. They haven't resolved their childhood wounds, and they're acting out like the angry child. And, road rage, because within a car, people are, it's kind of like they have the armor of a tank. And so, yeah, that's when they can behave badly, because they're not as transparent, they're not seen as much. So what else do I want to say? When Aries is expressed in a really healthy way, we evoke the sacred warrior. Okay, now patriarchy cast Aries as the kind of god of war. And if you Google Aries, you just get images of war, 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 you know, and it's really a distortion of the Aries energy. It's about the masculine ability to take action. And that's not just all men, that's the masculine in men and women. All right, for us to be balanced, we need to be able to harness this energy. And, you know, when we're coming from wound, when the child, because Aries is both the child and the warrior, when we're coming from unconscious wounds, we act out and we wound others, yeah? Whereas the sacred warrior is somebody who really accesses the opposite polarity of Libra, and the lesson of Libra, like the scales, is about balance. The more balanced we are, the more harmonious we are in all of our human interactions. And then we walk through the earth as a sacred warrior, one who acts to uphold and defend what is sacred, rather than someone who's, you know, hot-headedly looking to pick a fight because they've got a chip on their shoulder and they just need to express their pent-up anger. You know, for instance, I wouldn't want to be hanging out in a pub, that's probably Australian slang, hotel, bar this week, because, you know, yeah, you know, when people are drinking alcohol, they're lowering their consciousness, so they become more unconscious in their behaviors, and we're more likely to get the Incredible Hulk, which is a sort of pop culture representation of shadow Aries, you know, the sort of the man who doesn't know his own strength, okay? And that can be a woman as well, yeah? So someone who is a force of rage, and in that they've got the adrenaline that gives them superhuman power, and they can become a destructive force that is a danger to themselves and others. So for anybody who is at risk of domestic violence, you know, this is a danger time. This is a time to seek safety, you know, not be in a situation that could be potentially eruptive this week. Okay, what else wants to be said? Headaches. I know I had a headache, well, it lasted a couple of days this week, and some of the women in my retreat have had migraines. This is because we're coming up to this full moon in Aries, and Aries rules the head, okay? Just going to get a drink of water. The symbol of Aries is the ram, okay? You know, that uses its head as a battering ram, those horns. And let me just suck this down, hang on. So, you know, if we're experiencing a lot of Aries energy coming up for us, you know, we might stub our big toe, as I did also, which, you know, correlates to the head. Or have headaches because of the pressure that's building up in us. You know, it's almost like the steam coming out of our ears. So, you know, if you are feeling headachy, just, you know, really bring the energy down into the feet, walk around barefoot, but also, you know, look at where are you armoring up. You know, for me, I had huge knots in my neck and shoulders due to a number of, what would you say, miscommunications with logistics for my retreat. And I was just like knotted up, you know, I looked like a gridiron player. So if you're feeling that this week, you know, do de-armor, first of all, by, you know, just doing meditation and setting the intention that you want to drop the armoring and just let it melt off you and give it away to the earth. And, you know, deep heat creams, massage to just de-armor on a physical level that will help reduce pressure in the head. Finally, I would like to say that war is, you know, anti-life. It destroys. So while love creates, war destroys. So the lesson while we're journeying through these equinoxes, it's always love and war. It's always, you know, when we have the axes of Libra and Aries. And it's in terms of the archetypes, that's, excuse me, Aphrodite or Venus and Aries, the warrior. And if these archetypes that sit in the sacral, the emotional center that govern the emotional body, are not consciously understood, we can create drama for ourselves. So, you know, this could be a time when relationships, you know, go through some form of change or crises, which really brings out the best or the worst, okay? It's like, you know, the sort of, the crucible, when shit gets real, you know, people either rise to the occasion and the hero is evoked, which is positive Aries, or they collapse and go into wounded child, which is shadow Aries. So, you know, that's what we're dealing with this month. The key is to remain as balanced as possible. So whatever part of your life is out of balance, this is an opportunity for it to rebalance. So yeah, I hope that's helpful for you. I wasn't able to post this directly or do the live video on my Moon Woman page. Good old Facebook's locked me out again. So we will find a way. I think one of my assistants can, you know, share this as a, what do you call it, video after the fact. So I've just done it on my, what do you call it, on my timeline. And it's so nice to see all my personal friends here that are live. Wow. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Ewan. Hi, Dominique, Rochelle, Izzy. It's so cool to see you here. And I wish you lots of love. Thank you for tuning in. Have a blessed full moon and a blessed equinox. My sincere apologies for not getting the actual Astro Oracle out sooner. I did get up at 3 a.m. to start writing it. It's just I'm in the middle of my retreat at the moment. So, yeah, big days, intensive process work, but it's beautiful. 22 women, it's such a gift. Just on that, there's still places at my Rainbow Bridge retreat, and we'll be journeying these archetypes, embodying the strengths of not just Aries and Aphrodite, but all of the archetypes that make up our psyche, our soul. So that's for men and women, whether you're single, couples, trans, bisexual, heterosexual, does not matter, because you know what, at the end of the day, beyond the identification of the rational mind, we are all masculine, feminine, and that's soul, okay? So that's the level I'm working at. And yeah, it would be my honor to initiate you through that. So yeah, have a beautiful full moon, have a beautiful equinox, and thanks for joining me live, those of you that were here. Ciao for now. Oh, themoonwoman.com if you want more details about the Rainbow Bridge retreat in December. All right, ciao.